And Devin McCourty joins us this morning on the Harbor One Hotline. Hey, Dev.
What's happening?
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Well, I'm taking a little shrapnel here on Mack Island after the worst loss under the command of Bill Belichick for this franchise. So I would ask, Wiggy said he felt like you were on the island with me. So I would ask if you remain on Mack Island or if the issue is indeed the quarterback here.
When you said issue, you mean issues? It was 38-3.
Yeah,
there was a lot. There was a lot of issues out there, not just one issue. Yeah, I'm still on Mac. I don't really see where people want this thing to go from a quarterback situation. I was there maybe that first week or two of the season, and somebody came up to me and was like they just got to get a new quarterback, and I was like, what? Like, what's the issue at quarterback? Then they lose 38-3, and now everybody's like, see, I told you. And I'm like, the game was bad overall. Like, Mac didn't play well, but, I mean, you would have to search that tape to find a guy who played well. Like, I'm sure even Monday when they watched film, it was kind of like, listen, fellas, this whole thing is just bad. Like, we could go through it, and it'll take hours, but this whole thing overall is bad. And they need to just come and have a clean slate Sunday. Yeah. And I did my charity event Monday up there, and I told the fans, I said, hey, these guys, they need to guarantee to win Sunday. But I couldn't get any of the guys out there to guarantee to win, but I tried.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you're talking about Wiggy and Scheim, who marched in here Monday in Wiggy's case, Tuesday in Scheim's case, and gave it the old I told you so. And Mac doesn't have – he's got a bad arm. He's Courtney said that he's spiraling mentally. RG3 said that Bill has ruined him permanently, and so that is the tone.
Rex Ryan had fun too. I saw that one.
Yeah. I mean, so from your perspective, it's everything, and I mean, would you go so far as to say the least of your worries is Mac Jones?
So I just don't think it's a Mac Jones issue when you talk about the offense. I think the issue is the offense. Like it's definitely a situation. I just don't see it as like only Mac Jones. I think everyone wants to make it only about Mac. Like if I don't know, like the guy that everybody. I would love to hear who's the quarterback that somebody thinks could come in and like this team's gonna now win 12 or 13 games. Like I just don't see that. Like I don't think Mac's the issue.
Who is it, Scheim?
Well, I'm just curious. Is it scheme or?
Oh, he asked you a question. Who's going to come in here and win 12 or 13 games?
I mean, there's a handful of guys that could probably come in here and win double-digit games.
Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Herbert could come in here and win 10 games.
Lamar Jackson.
So are those guys going to win that? And are they going to be in the AFC Championship with their teams? Because those teams are pretty good, talent-wise.
Yeah, it's a tough AFC.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, I think, Dev,
I don't know if those guys win 10 games in New England.
Well, but I look. This is what I. This
but
is
isn't that a massive indictment of Bill Belichick then? That not even the most talented quarterbacks can come in and on this offense win 10 games?
Yeah, I just don't think they have a lot there, especially with the competition that they're playing. So I think it's a combination of things. I think the teams that New England had over the last 6 or 7 years were good. And when you have a guy like Tom Brady as quarterback, and then you're never – like, again, I spoke about this before. When Indy had Peyton Manning, the year he hurt his neck, they won 2 games. The next year they drafted Andrew Luck. New England, they haven't been bad enough to have top 5 picks. So you don't really ever get a chance to get those guys that are just elite players no matter what team you put them on. Yes, you can go find guys in the draft. Christian Gonzalez is one of those guys. Kyle Duggar's one of those guys. But, like, overall, when you always have to pick at the end of rounds or mid to end of rounds, you're trying to get the top talent, but you're not always getting those generational kind of what everybody says Hall of Fame guys. New England's never had that. That's hard to develop a team and start over without having that kind of talent. Like when they drafted Andrew Luck, every pick in the draft, you had the top pick in that round. Like that helps you as a team.
Well, the thing that I look at, and this is what I say, I understand the offense has its issues, but when you have a quarterback, and I had said this last year, when your defense is good, but you have a quarterback that has a limited ceiling, he can't elevate the players around them, where I wanted Lamar Jackson because I think he can elevate the players around them because of his skill set. That's why I think New England struggles at the quarterback position, because in order for Mac to be good, he needs to have what Brock Purdy has in San Francisco, and arguably one of the best defenses in the league, an unbelievable pass rusher, Nick Bosa, one of the best tight ends in the league, one of the top 7 wide receivers in the league. You need to put unbelievable talent around a guy where that's not what New England has. And so if you don't have that, then you need a quarterback that can maybe take decent players and elevate them.
I'm not going to argue with that argument. I think that is a really good point. I think Mac is a good player. I don't necessarily think Mac is, the Josh Allens, the Justin Herberts. Like he hasn't gotten to that level. So I would agree with that. I think Lamar Jackson, I said in the offseason when I was on the show, he has a special skill set. Whether you like his skill set or not, he has a very special skill set that we had a game plan against him. I played against him. It's hard to plan that week. It's hard to understand what's coming at you, the QB run game, the different things that they're able to do. And then now they actually have receivers who scare you a little bit. It's even harder to game plan for them. So, yeah, I think that argument is a fair argument too. When you play against an offense, you're going to have weapons everywhere and a smart quarterback who can get them the ball in the right place, not necessarily drive them up and down the field and put the team on their back, but knows how to manage and run the offense. Or you have a quarterback that is just a guy that can do everything on the field, a Mahomes. Yes, he has Kelsey, but even when he doesn't have Kelsey, he makes those other guys better players. So that is definitely the argument. But I think for New England, the hard thing is you knew what you had in Mac. So now you have to try to put the pieces around him. I thought a guy like Jacoby, I think watching Jacoby in Vegas has to stink if you're a New England Patriot fan, because he looks like he even got better, and he was your most productive guy last year. So it shouldn't be a surprise because of his work ethic and what he's done since coming into the league as an undrafted free agent. He's gotten better every year. So I'm not saying he's that one piece that changes it, but I think he's another piece you had and you let him go and you didn't replace that. So now, to me, you're not even as good at the receiver position. So it's tough sledding.
Yeah.
Well, Devin, you know Mac as a player better than any of us in this room. And the reason I say spiraling is because you hear Bill O'Brien say that he made uncharacteristic mistakes during that loss on Sunday once they started losing. When he was at Alabama, Nick Saban said things about when things weren't going his way, the way that he acted. Matt Patricia, you saw that last season, then his rookie season, the breathing exercises. When you played on the team with him, was that an issue with Mac when things weren't going his way? He almost put too much pressure on himself that led to these mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's most quarterbacks. I think when you watch even like Dak Prescott last year, he got killed this year because everybody's talking about how many interceptions he threw and this and that. I think he was trying to make a lot of plays last year. They lost Amari Cooper. They only really had CeeDee Lamb as a receiver that was a real threat. He tried to go out there and do everything, and then it didn't work out. It was interceptions. It's hard to play well when you're trying to do that each and every week you go out there. So I think for Mac, I think, yes, when it's not going well, it's very hard to kind of stay positive and wait for the next play when you're still losing games. And I think there was a lot of positive energy around New England the first 2 weeks, but the end result was still losses. So each one of those guys are now going out there like, all right, I just need to do a little bit more for us to get over the edge and win. And in a game like this game Sunday, he definitely spiraled out because now it's bad, it's worse. You keep trying to press on and try to make the next really great play, and you can't play like that. So I think there's something to be said for that. But I don't think that's like this eye-opening thing. When a player's not playing well and it's not going well, you're going to continue to go downhill. Like we watch teams do that every year, and we watch players have seasons like that.
Devin, so if you go back to 2019 after that 8-0 start, Tom Curran put this up yesterday. The Patriots are 30-34 in their last 64 games, including the playoffs. What is the answer to get this team back because from where I sit, having a quarterback that needs skill position players to elevate him is just not the formula that Belichick has used. So do you think Belichick is going to change the way he builds the roster, or how do you see them getting out of this mess of the last sort of mediocre 5 years?
I do. I think that's it. I think where you end it, I think he's gonna have to change his philosophy a little bit, because we're not really seeing back in the day the games that are going to be won on a regular basis. 13-10 or 17-14. Like, those games are really hard. They're going to come up. They come up every week in the National Football League, but it's hard for a team every single week to go out there and say, this is how we need to play, and this is going to be the key. We're going to hold our opponents to under 13 points, and we're going to score around 17 points a game. Like, that's really hard to do. And I think Bill was probably better than anybody else at building teams that could produce like that. And then having a guy like Brady, meant from an offensive standpoint, now you just jump up in your top 3 in the league every year in scoring, and then your defense usually finishes in the top 10 in scoring defense. So it's balancing out perfectly. Now your defense is, top 10 in scoring, sometimes top 5 maybe, but your offense is 30th or 28th, 20. Now it's not balancing out. So I think they would be better off defensively and switching some of these weapons up and diving more into an offensive standpoint. And defense, if you rank in the top 10 to 12 or 13, but offensively you're in the top 5, now you're giving yourself a better odds. And I think that's always been his key. He's always talked to us, NFL is about points, scoring more points and holding teams to points. And they still have that on one side, but on the other side, they have to find a way to score more points. And I think that's going to be investing more in the offense. And I think that is obviously going to be a process that can't just happen overnight, but through free agency and different things like that, they're going to have to invest more into blue chip type of guys who can be great players on any team they're on.
At home Sunday, bounce back game for them, you think?
I hope, but I mean, when you look at New Orleans, I don't think anybody looks at New Orleans as like this dominant team, but you can't look at New Orleans and say, yeah, New England's clearly better than them, because they both have pretty good defenses. I think New England's defense has played better than New Orleans' defense this year. But now for New England, no Christian Gonzalez, no Matthew Judon. And then from an offensive standpoint, both those teams are pretty much the same with how they perform. I think if we had to pick weapons, we would pick New Orleans with Olave and Michael Thomas and Rashidi, like all of these different guys. And now Kamara's back. So I still think it's an uphill battle for the team. I think they have a better shot this week to play in Dallas last week, but I don't think this is kind of one of those games where it's like, well, they're definitely going to bounce back against New Orleans. Like, no, they're going to have to come out and play a really good game to beat a New Orleans team who's still searching to find themselves.
How difficult is that going to be without a guy like Matthew Judon? You've been in the locker room with him before. He seems like, other than yourself there last year, like the leader of that defense. And obviously he leads the team in sacks, and now you lose the production he brings. How difficult is it going to be for New England to be able to win these games that could be a little bit closer for them to win, but they're losing they're probably their best player on defense. I had him as the MVP for this year on defense.
Yeah, I mean, his energy, I think that is, one of his leadership qualities, the energy and the enjoyment that he brings every day to the football field, especially on game day. Like, that's a hit for a team when you don't have that guy. And I think most importantly, like, you lose your best player. I used to say that to him and Trent Brown. Like, when we go out there and take the field from an offensive and defensive standpoint, you two should, at the early part of the game, make a play, and it doesn't have to be like this big play, but you should do something to another grown man where you just take them and move them and bury them. That gets the whole team on your side of the ball excited, because they are. When you look at that team, you look at those two guys, physically, skill set wise, like everything about them shows domination. They can take, like, I've watched Judon take a tight end that goes to block him on the edge and takes him all the way to the opposite guard. Doesn't make a play on the run, just sets a tone in the game, or like he's done that in joint practices. And it's the same thing with Trent. You take some of the best pass rushers and you see them go to rush, or you see a run block where he takes a double team and takes a guy back to the safety. That gets everybody going. So now for a defensive standpoint, not having that, they're going to need guys to step up. And I heard Mayo talk about Keon White. He's young, but he looks like another guy that can move grown men around, and he plays angry. So they're going to really need him to step up and fill, at least some of the shoes that Judon left behind. And I think Uche's ready to take another big step in the pass rushing on third down because he's now going to see a lot more of those probably double teams or chips, and he's going to have to step up and find ways to get to the quarterback.
Devin, as always, I wish we had an hour with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're so good. But
moving them tight ends is pretty easy nowadays, too. They don't like to block. They don't like to block, Dev, be honest.
They are more receivers than tight ends.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks, Dev.